program is presented by Success Society International. See you at the top. Our future generation is not going to learn based on what we tell them, but they are going to learn based on what they see. Hello Champion Society, this is Vaibhav Nahata, your presenter for Being Champions, and all excited and so much enthusiastic because in today's episode of Being Champions, we are taking things to a new level. In today's episode of Being Champions, like we do all the time, we talk about self-development, how we can take ourselves to next level in our life. We have Mr. Shridhar Maheshwari all the way from Delhi, Noida, and he's been working with numerous amount of parents as well as students to help them become better students as well as better parents. He's also a relationship expert and the CEO of the Shridhar Life School. We are so glad to have him on the show, and let's watch this wonderful interaction program with Mr. Shridhar. Thank you so much, Rookie Dills, as well, to help us make this episode happen. A lot of gratitude and welcome to you in Being Champions with Vaibhav Nahata.
Thank you so much. I love your energy, and it has energized me actually. So great to be here.
So we'll start out with some of the common problems and challenges that our parents are having these days, and then we'll dig deeper into more complex topics. So he is an expert in the parenting part. He has been counseling hundreds and thousands of parents of how they can create the next generation of fantastically awesome children, and we'll talk about that. But gradually, my dear Champion Society, you know that one of the biggest challenges all of the parents have, no matter what, is my child is using a heck a lot of mobile phone. All the time he's in mobile phone. They don't know what he is doing, but all the time the scrolling thing is going on, or maybe talking to friends or whatever it is. And whenever the parent is talking to the child that why are you doing this, the child is damn so frustrated and irritated out of it. So how can parent be in reconciliation with their children and make them happy and then limit their smartphone at the same time? Or a better question would be, is it also appropriate to let the children use mobile before a certain age?
So there is one truth in this life ki in this 21st century it's basically impossible that you can cut off mobile and screens altogether. That's just out of the window. Now, because if you actually do that, if you cut it off totally, you're actually causing some harm because your child is going to lag behind. They won't be able to catch up. So screens are here, mobile phones are here in this world, and we have to accept them. So that is the first thing. But there's one thing: if the child is really young, for toddlers, very like infants, timings must be very less. But otherwise, on a day-to-day basis, for studies, for entertainment, screen usage is going to be acceptable. So yeah, that is the first thing. It must be accepted. And how to control it? Actually, the question there is.
I would like to interrupt you.
Sure.
So we talked that for the little toddler children, it might not be appropriate. But one thing that the parent are seeming to be compelled to do is when the children have their lunch in front of them, and you have to convince them to it, getting them distracted by the mobile games, all those wonderful rhymes. I love to dance on it sometimes, but at the same time, children are getting addicted. So once they had their lunch, maybe they are not having the proper nutrition maybe that they want, and at the same time, that becomes a habit gradually, which keeps on increasing and creating more of the problem. So is it right to be watching all those children cartoon videos as well for the kindergarten children? Then we'll get back to the question.
Yeah, actually it's not ideal because parents so many times they use phones as a reward. You take it so that then he'll keep quiet and eat food, and sometimes they give it so that the child will distract themselves so I can have my peace time.
So true.
And and ultimately, sometimes they give you study, then I'll give you some screen time as a reward. So making screen time a reward is not the best idea because that kind of increases the importance of screen time as well. And that's why, yes, it's harder to do like feeding the child without the screen, but as much as possible, they must try that because once you introduce screens, it's very hard to take them back. It's so very hard to take them back. So if they get addicted to that, if they become used to that, then you can't really expect that when that child grows up and you're sitting on the dinner table and everybody's there, so the child would still want their screen. They would want to instead just go back to their room and use their phone and eat instead of talking to other people. So it's not advisable. As much as possible, it must be avoided.
And at the same time, if the children are using it when they get older, maybe when now at this point of time they're using it till a good amount of time, and the parents are saying that this is not the right thing to do, and he gets frustrated. So what trick can the parents play, or what can they do to make them use it in the right quantity or limit it or whatever that way?
Yeah. A couple of things. First, you have to understand what they are doing. All screen time is not equal. Just because your child seems to be on the phone does not mean that it's bad. They might be learning something. They might actually be talking to a dear friend, making the friendship stronger. They might be doing it to de-stress themselves for some time. It has good purposes as well. So you have to understand why is it being done. And then if you genuinely believe that it's too much, if you genuinely think that it's gone out of hand, then there's no other way than put in boundaries. You'll have to have limits, and you can't expect the child to give the phone back on them by themselves. So you'll have to have some boundaries and rules in the house.
But then, Sridhar, the parent and child relationship gets distorted over there, right? So I have a good relation that it's going good, but then you say that from now onwards, from this day onwards, no more than 1 hour of mobile phone.
Yeah.
And then you're like, my mother is so freaking no cool. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
relationship takes a turn. And when we talk about parenting, we want after a certain age the parents to be friends for the children. But that takes a distance. So what's your take on that?
So, very good question actually, because as a parent, you always have to balance two things, like the equal status, the friendship status, and the hierarchy status, which is the where you execute rules, limits, boundaries. So you cannot go in any extreme. You can't be just a parent, just giving orders, or you can't be just a friend, always equal, always giving them choice. So that's where the balance comes. So in some areas you'll have to be friendly, in some areas you'll have to have rules, and there is a whole art. There is a whole art, a whole set of guidelines on how you actually execute those rules. As in, like if you have to make the rule of only 2 hours screen time. Now, how do you do that? So there are multiple ways. Just for example, you sit with the child, you convey all the reasons why you're doing it. Then you do it with strictness but calmly. You don't go overboard, you don't get too aggressive, you don't put them down, don't say harsh things. Just be strong and just be very consistent with it. Like if this is a rule, I'm going to follow through. Like there is no loophole here. So gradually, if you do that nicely, calmly with reasons, children do adapt. They say, oh, this is it. Like this is what the environment is, and I have to live with it. So initially they might rebel. Initially, like if you're suddenly changing the environment, they might protest and fight with you. But if you follow through, ultimately they do adapt. So
Sridhar, one more very important. I got a very beautiful answer for that. So our Super Champs parents as well, we have one learning over here, that limiting it tactically, right? So making them understand that there is a reason I am doing this, and not being bossy and doing it, because that distorts the relationship over there.
Exactly.
One more thing, all of those parents want their children to be at the very top. They expect them to be top notch when they grow up, and in their intention, they try to do all they can. Right. So what's the ideal parenting way for a child at a very young age? Let's say from the time he gets born to a time when he ends the teen period. What's the right way to treat a child so that when he grows up and takes turns into life, he can make himself, no matter in which field he goes, but he takes himself out of the crowd from that level. So what's that parents can do from the very beginning to nurture their children like that?
Interesting. That's actually a very complex question because so many elements to it. The starting point always is, remember, you cannot do much. Just remember that. As a parent, not much is in your hands. If you think you can suddenly create a masterpiece out of your child, that's not the case. You have very limited influence on your child. And within that influence, there are a few things. First, there is no substitute to being involved. You'll have to stay involved. You'll have to keep understanding, keep noting down, and keep seeing what the child is doing, where they are good, so that you can nudge them in that direction. So that is one thing. You have to stay involved with the child's life, with the child's interests, and where exactly the child is. And the other is, remember that as a parent, you can give conditions. You can provide environment where the child can flourish. So you can give them more and more opportunities, maybe different classes, maybe allow them to take some risks so that the child can explore. So as a parent, instead of telling the child this is what you need to do and become better, that's not the way, because you don't know, and you don't know your child can be very, very different from you or their own sibling. So nobody knows what the exact way to success is. So that's why there's going to be a lot of what do you say, trial and error, a lot of exploration. So let them do things, fail, come back, and you be there supporting them, you stay involved and keep nudging them lightly.
So beautiful there. That makes so much of learnings over there. Now I want to jump a little bit into the relationship part, right?
Yeah.
Now this is what makes them blush right there. All of our champions watching these episodes. So my question is it ideal to get into relationship age of 18, or what's an ideal age? This is a very vague question again, but what's an ideal age to get into the relationships, etc., and all those things?
There's absolutely no answer to that, because ultimately what we want is
I was expecting that answer, that you say that there is no answer.
There's no answer, because there cannot be. It really depends on how well you can manage things. So if a relationship has completely taken over your life, you can't study, you can't sleep, you're talking all night, and then you are constantly worried and very insecure, then it has taken over your life. Then maybe relationship is not right for you, or maybe you manage it, you be with it, but you get some counseling, you get some help. The idea is, some relationship experience is better than nothing. Why? Because if you stay out of relationships and suddenly go get married, then you're like, oh, I don't know how to deal with this. So some experience is necessary. Now the question is when to start. I mean, it's very hard to answer. The moment you find someone good, try to be with them, talk to the other people, get interested, develop crushes, that's all okay. But the main question is, it should not interfere with your core life, your health, your career. As long as you're managing that, you can start as early as 11. So as long as you can manage the rest of your life.
Maybe you have.
No, I haven't. I didn't get that opportunity.
Okay. Yeah, you didn't get that opportunity.
Yeah. I consider it an opportunity, because each experience is a learning one. So yeah, you can make it a learning experience. You become stronger as a person, actually, if you manage one relationship right, and if you just go through that give and take, don't become completely fixed, it can transform you as a person.
Wow.
So that way.
So Shridhar, I have this, maybe sounds philosophical over here. So what my thinking is, let's not say my thinking, that's one perspective over here, is that if you have something big to achieve, you can't let yourself get lost into small things. If you want to have the biggest fish, you have to let go of the smaller fishes in the ocean or in the pond. So when you say that you have a big goal, something really big you want to achieve, you are driven by a bigger purpose in life that everyone wants to be driven to, then being into relationship, at times, does it not affect your momentum and pace through which you try to reach your goals there?
Oh yes, it does. See, we have limited time. So how do you prioritize it? And that, when you said you want to achieve a biggest goal, that is actually the main question. What is the priority of your life? Do you want to be the person who achieves so much, but then there will be cost? Then you might not be able to sustain friendships, you might not stay healthy, you might not be able to even eat right and not develop a relationship. Or you want to be a person, okay, I can manage good enough, but I want these things as well. So that's a choice that each individual makes, and we all have different temperaments. Not everyone wants to be super successful, not everyone wants a completely balanced. So you'll have to answer that question first. What is ideal for me? What kind of life looks ideal to me? And then you allocate your energy accordingly.
It's you're prioritizing what you want to
but
achieve.
Nobody can say that achieving big things is the only way of life. Like that's the only good way to live life.
Yeah, so what I have been doing is that I don't share this generally in my show, but I have made, every time it seems to me that someone's trying to approach me, I write down back as sister. So I've been doing that from a long time. I don't suggest it though, it's my way of doing things, no suggestions over there.
You have many sisters now, huh?
Yeah. Until I find.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump into you have been brought here by Kiddles. Kiddles are working with children newspapers right now, and they are doing a very wonderful work actually to, get the right content for the children. At the same time, they're doing so much of programs for parents and children. So they brought you here today for a program called Parenting in the 21st Century.
Yeah, in the digital age, yes.
In the digital age in the 21st century.
Yeah.
So you had some principles that you were going to share to the parents about how they can, help their children grow and get better.
Yeah.
We would love to hear something about that as well.
Yeah, I think a starting principle is always whatever you want to do, you have to actually first build a connection with the child. And there are multiple ways to do that. You have to accept your child, really, really accept them unconditionally. And you have to really empathize with their emotions. You have to talk to them regularly. So these are some of the ways, because if you don't have that connection, the deeper connection, you won't be able to execute boundaries, you won't be able to do anything. So that is kind of the foundation. Then for digital age, of course, like some of the things that I mentioned and other things like you have to involve them in very creative and productive things so they can stay away from screens, because you can't just take away their phones and ask them to wait and look at the ceiling. You have to give them something which is interesting for them. So how do you fill their time is in itself a project. So you have to be creative in that, and you can always find good things. And the nice thing is, once the child gets hooked to something good, then
it becomes a habit.
They can be on autopilot. Then you don't have to keep pushing them. So you have to wait till that point. So that is one thing. And then of course boundaries, like I mentioned, they are absolutely necessary. You cannot do without boundaries. And yeah, sometimes simply sitting with the child and enjoying things with them is also necessary, so that you know what world they are in, like what are they.
Oh, wonderful! We're in the last part of today's episode, Shridhar. Thank you so much. So I'll throw some random words to you, and it's a rapid fire round. So I shoot random words to you, and then you have to give a response in a single sentence. Okay? So it will go for 1 minute, and then we close off today's episode. So the first word is relationship.
Relationships can be amazing, but be careful.
Happiness.
Happiness, it is work, so keep working for it.
Success.
Success, overrated.
Parenting.
Parenting, again, very tough, but if you do it right, very rewarding.
Love.
Love, one of the best things ever.
Smile.
Well, the more the better.
Shridhar.
Shridhar, just thinking and thinking, enjoy thinking.
Vaibhav.
Powerhouse of energy.
Thank you so much, Shridhar. It was such a wonderful time interacting with you. So thank you so much, the Champion Society, for watching today's episode of Being Champions with Vaibhav Nahata. I'm sure you got so much of learnings about relationship and wonderful parenting and how you can become the next change maker for the world. Thank you so much once again. Hope to see you soon. Next Monday, 7 p.m. only on Makalu Television. This program is presented by Success Society International. See you at the top.